here. I wanted to speak to you again about another super special game, if you'll forgive me yet another corny pun. I know. Super, duh, what's he talking about? I'm going to talk about Super Metroid, a game like Earthbound, where this game belongs in a category of its own, because unlike most games ever made, Super Metroid has more going on below the surface, more depth than just about any game you have ever played. And like Earthbound, when this game came out, it was so remarkable, so ahead of its time, so cutting edge, that nobody bought it. Well, as you know, that's not 100% entirely true. Unlike Earthbound, some people actually did play Super Metroid back when it first came out, myself included. But that does not change the fact that it can easily be considered to be just as much of a flop as Earthbound. Let's look at the numbers, shall we? Yes, compared to Earthbound's 140,000 units sold, Super Metroid selling 570,000 units was semi-respectable for the time. At least more than Earthbound. But considering Metroid had a name, an established name, and considering this name was and is one of Nintendo's biggest franchise titles, and you go back and you look that Earthbound had no name, no title whatsoever, you can easily see why Super Metroid was also one of Nintendo's biggest flops in the 90s. Just compare Super Metroid's numbers to the other Nintendo games sold at the time, the major ones. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past sold over 4 million, Donkey Kong Country over 9 million, and Super Mario World a whopping 20 million. And all Super Metroid was able to sell was 570,000 units. But not only that, to add insult to injury for those of us that actually played it during the 90s, the reaction was simply meh. When I first played Super Metroid, my only opinion was just that. Meh. My only interest in the game was I wanted to see Mother Brain. Last video, I described my unbridled terror for the dreaded Gygas. Well, if there's one creature equal to terror for me from video games, it is Mother Brain. To an 8-year-old kid, Mother Brain is freaking scary. Especially when you're coming from watching a cartoon like this as a kid, and then you open Nintendo Power, and suddenly this is staring you in the face? Ah! Jesus, look at that monster's cold, unflinching eyes. And she never even flinches, not once, while Samus shoots missile after missile directly into her face. She's like Kevin from Sin City. Except she's a fucking brain! A giant evil space pirate brain hell-bent on conquering and annihilating most of the known universe. So yeah, I do have a little bit of an obsession with this little baddie, but not enough to waste hours of time getting lost all over Super Brinstar and Super Norfair, and do not even get me started on wall jumping. Stupid space goats! But luckily for me back then, I didn't even have to beat this game. All I had to do was go rent it from any video store, and some dude before me had already beaten the entire thing. All I had to do was use his save point, go down to the Turian, and then beat Mother Brain, and then I didn't have to play Super Metroid anymore. Yay! I said goodbye to Super Metroid, and then I even said goodbye to the Super NES. I had just become 15 years old, and I was a man. An anchor man. No more kiddie games for me. I went on to the next console, doing something unthinkable, something I never thought I would do. I abandoned Nintendo. I bought myself a PlayStation, and I played games so fucking awesome, games that got me so high with video gaming delight, that it was like I took a full dose of awesome sweet Alabama Liquid Snake, and my mind blew chunks straight through the Milky Way. I'm talking Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which felt oddly familiar, and Soul Blade! And no, I did not notice or care that Metroid never came to the 64. I didn't even have a 64. I was too busy being awesome. 15 years old and halfway to an adult. I didn't have time for a little kiddie Nintendo anymore. But then Metroid Prime came out, and Metroid Prime was amazing. No Mother Brain to be found anywhere, unfortunately, but they had successfully made a 3D Metroid, and that was awesome. And soon after, Metroid Prime 2 came out, but by this point, I didn't care. I was losing interest in games in general. I was over 20 years old now, and just for me, the gaming party was starting to die down. I rocked the GameCube and the PlayStation 2 throughout college, but something just wasn't feeling right anymore, and I just couldn't put my finger on it back then.
Ah ha
might be saying. What about Resident Evil 4? Oh, sure, Resident Evil 4 was awesome, but that was my last gaming hurrah! Oldness happens, ladies and gentlemen, and I didn't want to play anything new anymore. I only wanted to play old stuff from the Nintendo and Super Nintendo library. Stuff I'd missed. I caught up on almost every single classic I had missed. Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, and Final Fantasy VI. But still, as you know, no Earthbound, and certainly not Super Metroid either. College ended and I got myself a career. The only kind of career my generation knows. A lousy one. Ba-dum-bum. I know. I completely stopped playing video games, and I did something just utterly unthinkable and truly terrifying to an honest-to-God gamer. I started reading books! I started reading a shitload of books. Books on every subject imaginable, and graphic novels by the ton. I started writing, too, because reading's not scary enough. When you write, you are actually perpetuating the vicious cycle of giving people new books to read? Crazy! But after 6 years of this, I noticed that my prime interest was, and will always forever be, video games. Because, hey, I can't write a single thing without video games somehow sneaking its way into my work. And thanks to the internet, I got to research the shit out of it now. I got to watch every single retrospective and review out there on just about every single game. Thank you, Game Trailers. Thank you, Machinima. And thank you, YouTube. This, as you know, is how I discovered Earthbound, and this is definitely how I rediscovered Super Metroid. And Super Metroid is awesome. Beyond belief. But let me tell you, for many reasons yet to be uncovered, this game is more than just a gem. Believe it or not, this game is a horror classic gem. And not only that, just like Earthbound, this is a gem with more meaning, more depth, and more substance going on below the surface than just about any game you've ever played. And even if you've played Super Metroid 100 times, I promise there are all kinds of things going on below the surface that you are never aware of. For starters, Super Metroid is in fact a horror classic. Yes! After all, it was a game directly inspired by one of cinema's greatest sci-fi terrors of all time, Alien. And if you don't believe me, just go ask Ridley the Dragon. Or Ridley the Director, who directed Alien! Now, I fully understand how you never ever hear of Super Metroid being coined as a horror game. It's usually coined as an action-adventure game, and I suppose the fact that it was made by little kiddie Nintendo doesn't help my case much whatsoever. That said, all the more reason why Metroid and Super Metroid are the secret terror of the video game world, one under our very noses in Nintendo Land of all places. No, there are no jump scares. No, the creatures you meet for the most part are far from frightening with their googly eyes and their little fish tails. And no, there is not a single drop of blood in the entire game, but trust me when I say this. Metroid successfully makes you experience mankind's greatest fear of all, better than any survival horror game you have ever played. Zombies? Yes, zombies are uber scary. We as a species have been petrified of getting eaten alive since the Ice Age, especially by saber-toothed tigers and the undead. We are predominantly scared to death of death itself, whether by zombies or by diabetes. Death terrifies us all the way to the grave, but when you boil down all of our humanly fears, when you get right to the source of it, to the root of it, nestled deep within every single one of our brain stems, our ultimate terror will always be the darkness, the unknown, and the fact that one day we may have to face these things alone, entirely alone. Doesn't matter how terrifying a situation in life or a game may be. Nothing helps cut the scariness in half like having some company to share it with. Man is a social creature after all. We need socialization. We need company. And in the world of Metroid, there is none. It is just you. No townsfolk. No mushroom people. Not even a Meilin or a Sheva. It's just you. Man does not like being alone, and on planet Zebes, you're alone for the entire mission, but I've got more bad news for you. There's a real-life place where you will forever and ever be alone too, and unfortunately, this place is right between your ears. Yes, your head. I'm talking about your head. This is the one place you will never have company in for your entire life. You will never know the inside of another person's mind, and no one will ever know yours. The inside of your mind can easily become a dark, scary maze, one you may eventually have to face someday, battling all kinds of scary inner demons. No, you won't have any help, and yes, this is the essence of Metroid. This is Metroid, making it, in my opinion, one of the scariest and most powerful games ever made. Metroid is a metaphor for the human mind itself, and though its message may be the sad fact that each and every one of us are truly alone, this is not necessarily a message of doom and gloom. Metroid teaches the mind is a place where if you dare to bravely go below the surface in adventure, if you fear not getting lost, if you fear not the terrors you will face all by your lonesome self, there are treasures to uncover and abilities to unlock. There is greatness to uncover, and it can all be yours if you dare to adventure.